Ashley. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Friends You Keep. As they say, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And at Erin Wellness Support Supplements, we believe sustainable health and wellness is an accumulation of our 5 pillars, which are the thoughts you think, the friends you keep, nutrition, movement, and then supplementation. Each month, we love to feature women doing exceptional things that hopefully will inspire you to step into who you are supposed to destined to be. And today we have Meaghan Esser with us. So welcome, Meaghan.
Thank you for having me.
So glad you're here. Meaghan Esser is a registered holistic nutritionist and the managing director of ITL Health, a Canadian magnesium-based supplement manufacturer. After 9 years of her own successful nutritional consulting practice, Meaghan decided to lend her business and nutrition expertise to her family's growing supplement business in 2019. Meaghan's entrepreneurial mind, combined with her love of research and educating others about magnesium, made her a perfect fit for the role of ITL Health. Meaghan is a magnesium,
it fits.
they're just together. Meaghan is a seasoned traveler who originally hails from Southwest Ontario, and she's a proud mom of 3 boys, all who love their Mag 365, which I have here too. Little plug on that one. So welcome.
Thank you.
So
yep, they remind me to take it every night. I think it's partly a stall tactic, but it's bedtime. But we didn't take our magnesium yet.
I'm at the age, I have a 14-year-old where it's she's basically like, leave me alone, I'm going to bed. And I'm like, but it's only like 8:30, come and hang out with me. And she's like, I don't want to talk. So
and us moms of young kids are like dreaming of those days.
Trust me, it will come before it comes. You'll be like, what do you mean you want to come out? You want to go to bed at 9? What?
Come hang out. I heard it just flips. It's like, just go to bed. And then suddenly you're like, wait, hang out with me.
And it's like, it happens so fast. So yeah, enjoy the little, like them trying to, because I remember back, I was thinking about that the other day of her, like her constant coming out. Like I was seeing her with my family. I remember when she was little, she'd come up, mom, come out again, mom. So
and sometimes, what? I love you. And you're like, I love you too. Now go back to bed.
Exactly. So I would really love to, I think everybody here, we'd love to hear, kind of tell us about your journey and what it took you to where you are now, and especially with this amazing company you guys have.
So I was raised in a home that really valued nutrition, and we're talking now years ago. I don't want to give away too many years, just kidding. Now nutrition is much more of the norm, and health food stores are much more common. But when I was being raised, 35 years ago, nutrition wasn't as common. Supplementation wasn't as common. That's more when sugar cereals or processed foods weren't quite known to be as bad as they are. White Wonder bread was the norm. My parents always really valued nutrition. They never bought us things like fruit roll-ups or fruit snacks. We used to, get teased for eating birdseed bread at school because everybody had Wonder bread. We had, the nice seedy bread. My parents went to see a nutritionist, and actually that nutritionist put them on magnesium, which is what led us to the magnesium business, because they noticed such an improvement in health with their magnesium. So I was also raised in a very entrepreneurial mindset. My grandpa was an entrepreneur. My father's an entrepreneur. So it really is just kind of ingrained in our personalities, but also, it's what we saw going on around us. So I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother, and my 2 older sisters and I actually had like a little business for a few months when we were kids. I don't even know how old we were. We must've been like 8, 10, and 12. And we made $350 US doing this business, which was just like amazing as a kid, right? So we started our entrepreneurial stuff young, and, we always did little things. So I went to university just as a general BA, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do after that, but I knew that I wanted to do some post-secondary. So I did that degree, and then I decided I wanted to become a registered holistic nutritionist. So I started my own practice, as you mentioned, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't love always consulting every day. So when my father approached me to come join the family business, which does magnesium supplements, and then I got to do business, it was just like, it felt like I won the lottery. I got to do everything. My love of nutrition, my love of business, and then my love of my family. So, and it was after I had my 3rd child, I was coming off of my mat leave, and I knew I didn't want any more children. So it just kind of all fell into place perfectly.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with magnesium, because we might have people on here who really have kind of heard about it, because it really is, it readily is available, but I think a lot of people don't understand the benefits of magnesium. Can you explain a little bit about magnesium, about ITL Health, and about your products so people can understand that?
I would love to. So the reason we got into magnesium, like I said, it was a big life changer for my parents. But that's mostly because magnesium is so essential for so much of what our body does. So most people don't realize that it's necessary for 80% of biochemical reactions in the body. So that's, it's more than 3/4 of what the body does requires magnesium to do it properly. So that means a lot can go wrong in our bodies, in our health, if we don't have adequate magnesium levels. And a lot of us actually don't. It's a very common deficiency because it's not in the soil like it used to be. It's depleted with stress, and we all have very fast-paced lifestyles these days. It's easily depleted from food, especially if you don't do proper food cooking processes, which a lot of us don't. Again, in our busy life, we don't soak our grains, we don't sprout our nuts, those sorts of things. So it's very easy to become deficient in magnesium. And we believe one of the best ways for people to reach optimal health is to make sure that these magnesium deficiencies are being addressed. And although there's other things, of course, our bodies need beyond magnesium, a lot of times if you start with magnesium, then you can see, was it a magnesium deficiency, or was it partly that, or now where do I need to move on to? So we really focus on making the best absorbed magnesium supplements we can, because, being a health and wellness company, of course, we see no point in trying to sell a product that's not going to help people live their best lives. So we focus only on really well absorbed magnesium, and then also synergistic blends of nutrients that work together. So like the product you're holding is our bone formula. And actually we have a couple versions, but this version doesn't have calcium. And that's because according to our research, we realized, we were seeing evidence that poor bone health and bone fracture is not actually a calcium deficiency per se that they were thinking that it was, but it's a deficiency in all the cofactors that help get calcium to the bones and other cofactors that build healthy bones. So again, we really focus on these research-driven formulas to make sure that the body is getting the blend of the right nutrients that all work together. And magnesium is at the base of a lot of these because it's necessary for actually that 80%. Current research shows it translates into about 800 processes that the body needs magnesium for.
Everybody should be taking their magnesium.
Exactly. And it's great because it's safe for almost everybody to take. So it's not one of these like, oh, be careful, almost everybody needs it, and it's a very safe mineral to take. So another big pillar that we focus on at our company is purity in products. So we're quite proud of our magnesium bisglycinate. As far as we know, I love to be challenged on this if we can find one, but as far as we know, it's the only one available on the market. The first one available that we know of in the global market, the only one available in Canada right now, because we had a copycat in Ireland, which we love, that is fully pure. So there is no magnesium stearate in here. There's no other flow agents. All that is in here is magnesium bisglycinate, which is not easy to do from a manufacturing perspective, but we figured out some processes, and we kind of, it's a little bit harder to do than if you use a flow agent, but we're doing it. And so this is a completely pure product. All of our other products as well don't have fillers, don't have excipients, don't have flow agents. They don't have anything. So that is one of our big pillars too, to have full product purity and transparency.
Well, with the magnesium bisglycinate, I heard a fact the other day. Somebody was saying that with a lot of the products with magnesium bisglycinate, that there's only a certain amount percentage your body can absorb in that. So if you have magnesium bisglycinate, it's still a very small amount your body can absorb, right?
Well, and part of the
right.
Sorry, yes, exactly. And some companies, so part of the problem, a big thing with bisglycinate, and especially what Canada allows for labeling, is you'll see a lot of companies label it, like ours is pure magnesium bisglycinate, and you'll see that on almost every bottle, but then you turn it around and you look in the ingredients, and the ingredients are magnesium bisglycinate and magnesium oxide.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not a pure bisglycinate, that's a blend, but the oxide goes in there because magnesium oxide has a very small molecular size. So you can fit a lot into a capsule. So magnesium bisglycinate has a big one. So you can't fit that much magnesium bisglycinate into a capsule, but you can top up, double with the oxide. And then it looks like you're getting a ton of magnesium bisglycinate in one capsule. But the problem is that magnesium oxide doesn't absorb that well. And magnesium oxide is quite harsh on the bowels, whereas bisglycinate is gentle. So when people see, when they think they're getting 200 milligrams of bisglycinate, but they're getting half oxide, they're not actually getting all the magnesium benefits that they think they are, because a lot of them don't even realize there's magnesium oxide in it. So our product, this is our top selling SKU in Europe, where we have a large market share. It won Best Sleep Aid Award, which is just a pure magnesium. And so some people think, oh, only magnesium won Best Sleep Aid, but just because it's so pure, and if you take the right amount of magnesium bisglycinate, you see great benefit.
Oh, that's amazing. And how many products do you guys have?
So we have a couple different lines. It's a bit confusing. Our company name is ITL Health, but we have a few brands. So we have Prismag, which is our capsule line. It's our pure magnesium bisglycinate. It also has Prismag Plus, which has K2 and D3 in it. Then we have our Mag 365, which is our ionic magnesium powder. So this is, scientifically formulated to basically you fizz it in the cup, you add water to it. That's what activates it, makes it so bioavailable for use. So this is just pure magnesium. And then we have a few lines in this brand, Mag 365. We have the bone formula, which you have without calcium. We have the bone formula with calcium. So this still has all the same cofactors to get calcium to the right places, but this is for people who need added calcium. And then we have, of course, our Mag 365 kids.
Okay.
And then lastly, we have plans to expand this line, but we've been so busy expanding everything in Canada, we haven't moved on more products, but we have vitamin D plus. So this was the first SKU on the market that combined magnesium with vitamin D, because vitamin D activation in the body is magnesium dependent. So when you take vitamin D, it actually is biologically inactive and it has to undergo 2 conversion processes before the body can use it. And both are magnesium dependent.
Nice. Okay. So that's
So
why.
this has a couple other things for the immune system and the vitamin D balance, K2 and B12 for the immune system. But these are our kind of 3 lines and product offerings that we currently have.
In Canada, US, and Europe as well. So you're available.
So we sell online in the US, but we haven't made any effort to get into stores yet. But we are in Europe, primarily in Ireland and the UK, because those are the English speaking places. So they were easier for us to gain market share, but we are starting to get some market share in the Netherlands as well. So it's a little bit confusing. People always wonder why a Canadian company started in Europe. And it's because we used to actually third party sell a magnesium supplement. And then when we parted ways with that company, we ended up making our own products.
And then that took, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into that, but that in itself, because that's quite a family story. I know that basically you weren't able to sell your brand within Canada for a number of years because you had to, right? There was some sort of
Yes.
legal
Yes.
stuff.
So the company, we did receive their blessing to make our own product when we parted ways, but then they decided to sue us for copying their formula, which we didn't do, but we still had a really long lawsuit to prove that we didn't do it. It cost us a lot of money. And right before it was about to go trial by jury, that company approached us with a settlement offer. And we took the settlement offer, even though it wasn't the offer that we might have wanted, it still was an okay offer. And because they could have appealed the loss, they knew they were going to lose. That's what we like to think. That they could have appealed the loss, and we didn't have any more money to fight them because corporate lawyers cost way too much money.
Wow.
So one of the settlement offers was that we would sign a non-compete to not go into North America for a number of years. So that's why we just kept concentrating on our market share there. And now we're finally in Canada, which is great because now we produce in Canada, we live in Canada.
Yeah. Well, that must be such a relief to finally have that done with and behind you, because it's so much stress to have some sort of litigation, or that energy of that litigation. Just, it can really be kind of all encompassing, all encompassing.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And magnesium is depleted when you're stressed. And so you can take extra magnesium when you're stressed to
You have stopped.
Like an average dose of this is 2 teaspoons a day. My dad was taking like 3 tablespoons, which sounds crazy, but he was just so stressed. It just took such a toll because he was spearheading, dealing with all the documentation and everything. So yeah, it was a tough time.
That's me to also say as well. So let's say somebody has this product here. If they are experiencing high stress, you recommend they kind of take a little bit more, because that's going to support your body even more, obviously, because your body is working overtime and it's going to exacerbate or deplete, right? Your magnesium.
Yes, the magnesium. Yeah. And that's what's great too about the powder. So we do have the powder and the capsules, but the powder you can easily just dose a little bit more, right? It's easy to kind of play with. And I've actually noticed in my life when I have times of greater stress, even just more on the go, Christmas time where you're running here, there, planning everything. One of the telltale signs of magnesium deficiency is muscle cramps. And I take a cup of that product every morning, but during times when I have a lot going on, I start to get a bit of muscle cramps, because I think it's just because I'm using more magnesium every day from the go, 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 go. So I just take a little bit more and then they go away.
Okay, right. Good note, people. Well, and speaking, so we kind of just talked a little bit about your family there, but I mean, that's a unique situation working with your family. Not everybody can work together as a family. So what have you learned from working with your family? And we talked a little bit before we kind of came on a little bit family value stuff, but how do your family values really incorporate into the company ITL?
So I would say in terms of working with my family, one of the big takeaways is that communication is key. we're very lucky. We get along quite well. We're all fairly easygoing, that kind of peacemaker personality. So there's not a lot of conflict, luckily, but there's always going to be disagreements and differences of opinions and everything. And I've really learned to, just air that out, just communicate. When you feel frustrated or you feel like you're not being heard, or you feel very strongly about a decision that was maybe, that somebody said, no, 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 we're not going to do that. But you feel very strongly, just communicate. And the more you communicate, the more you can understand where everybody's coming from, and that there might have been a misunderstanding, that someone might not have intentionally, said that thing that bothered you, or, and my sister and I run the company primarily, which is really nice because we get along great, but we can also just call each other out if we need to. Like sometimes she says to me, you're being grumpy today. Stop taking it out on me. And then I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm sorry. So that's nice. And because I'm a passive person by nature, that it's been a good growing experience for me to kind of advocate for myself. And that's a great value my father has actually taught us in business, is that you have to advocate for yourself, stand up to people and show them, that you're a boss and that you're not going to be treated a certain way.
I think being a woman in business is also a little more, I mean, I find for myself, because I don't like conflict. I don't like to argue with anybody. I want to be everybody's friend. But
Yeah.
one of the things I really learned in the past, especially the past 4 or 5 months, is where I have to then, have the boundary of being able to say, this is not okay. And being able to write an email and then be able to go on WhatsApp and be like, so I hope everything's fine. Like it's a weird kind of dance to be able to have the balance, especially when you're working with people or people working for you, to be able to say exactly what you want in a way that you don't want to be mean, or you don't want to come across like you're demeaning or micromanaging, or it's been something I've really stepped into learning a lot more. I've had leadership coaching on it too, which has helped, but it is because I tend to not be, I was like, it's fine, whatever, it's okay. And sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah,
So
and you can't run a business that way, right? Because then your business will start to underperform. And I find that as well, because I don't like conflict, and it sounds like we're very similar in that way, that it can easily shake me up when there is conflict, and it can stick with me. And so I've had to learn to, grow a little bit thicker skin, and that's business, this is that. And you're not going to get along with everybody. You're not going to agree with everybody.
you have to be, and you have to be able to have your voice heard, because if you don't, then that eats away at you no matter what. Like you're mad at yourself for not actually stating what
Yeah, big time. I should have done this. Yeah, I'm letting them do this. Yeah, big time.
ask
Big
myself.
time. And that's another thing too, in terms of what you asked about, like family values coming through with the business. That's a great thing. My father, so my father still is involved in the business and the manufacturing side, but my sister and I run the day-to-day business. But he's always been really big on integrity. Like do what you say you'll do, and be who you are. And it's a really great value in business, because we run our business with integrity, right? Like, again, like the purity, like, no, we don't put oxide, in it, and we don't add this and we don't add that. And, we formulate for proper absorption. So like the integrity of saying like, no, you could come and see our factory. You could come and see, you could lab test our products. Everything that we say is in there. And I think when you start to develop business relationships, and then, and you come through with what you say you'll do and everything, then you can really develop those strong relationships that don't have to have as much conflict. Because then even if you do have to have a conversation, that can be hard to have when you're conversing with someone that trusts you, and vice versa. That conversation can be a lot easier to have.
I agree with that too. And integrity, I'm 100% there with you. I think there's a lot of opportunity within our industry to take shortcuts, even though we do have MPNs, we do have Health Canada. And that's always been something I've really thought as well, is anybody can test any of my products at any point in time, and everything that's on that label is on that label.
Mhm.
I always want consumers to know that I would want to make a product that is 100, like, stands in integrity of exactly what I'm creating for them. And that's I think that's a huge thing to have an integrity, not only in business, but then that translates just to life and in your day-to-day interactions. And in that, you tend to also have people in your life who operate in that way as well. I think it just becomes
Right. Like you said, the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
to you. So I
Well, and
definitely
I think too, like for your business, you're creating women's product to help women be healthier, which is amazing. And of course you run that with integrity, because that's why you're in it, to see women live healthier lives, right? So whenever I discover any health company that is taking shortcuts or something, it bothers me, because I think you're in the health business here. you're supposed to want to see people get healthier. If you take shortcuts, then it goes against what
Mhm.
the whole business as an industry is. And then it teaches people not to trust other companies. So whenever I find other companies that, are run with such integrity, I get really excited about it.
Which is why I'm excited about your company. So what is the best advice? Because you must have, I know I have a team of mentors who have been really instrumental in my growth and development. What do you have the best advice? You have best advice a mentor has ever said to you?
So I think it actually goes a little bit back to what I was saying with my father teaching us, to make sure to stand up for ourselves, is that he's taught us our whole life, not only in business, but it really applies in business, that you teach people how to treat you.
Mm.
And that's always really stuck with me. And like I said, it's totally applied to business, because if you let people walk all over you, they will walk all over you. And that translates to everything. That it translates to your employees, that translates to your friends, your partner, and your business relationships, right? Like we've had a few times, in our UK side of the business where we've said to a company, like we had a main distributor, they weren't paying us on time. So if we had enough, we said, you know what, we don't want to sell to you anymore. And they said, what? You do a lot of money with us every year. And we're like, no, you guys are bullying us. We're a small company. You never pay on time. You only pay when you want another shipment. We're not doing this anymore. No, no, please, 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 we'll pay on time. And then they did start paying on time, right? So, that's a kind of very black and white example, but it really to really advocate for yourself and teach people how to treat you, and that you are strong, and that you are deserving of whatever it is that you're looking for, not looking for, but you're, with a spouse, let's say, or a partner, you're deserving of love and affection. And in business, you deserve respect, and you deserve, that they're going to do what they're going to hold up their end of the bargain with employees, that you deserve them to be honest with you and work hard. And, but also that's another thing that a mentor taught me, is teach your employees that they can come to you, and that you can admit when you're wrong, and that you can make mistakes, and teach your employees, to have respect for you, but also feel like they can, talk to you if you make mistakes, or if they think that, they have a good idea, that they're never really afraid of your reaction.
Yeah, no, I think that's really huge. I think too is being able to like kind of admit when you're wrong. And from a mothering standpoint, because I have a 14-year-old, there's been times when I know I haven't had the best like mom moment, right? And I'll be like, so that was not a good mom moment, parenting moment there. And so I'm really sorry. I'll apologize to her and she'll be like, well, that's okay. And I'm like, well, no, I don't really, the way I responded to you, that wasn't the way I want to be as a mom to you. There's no excuses. I maybe had a rough day, but I still could have made different choices. And I think acknowledging that, whether it be business, friends, wherever it is, we're able to say, I'm sorry. And there's not a but, because a lot of the times like, but I've been busy. So
Right. Sorry, but if you would have just listened to me, that's so true.
the apology, right? And just being like, I'm really sorry that, I acted that way, or this came across this way and it affected you. And I am sorry. And will you forgive me? I think that's a big thing too, to not only carry into personal, but also into business, where you're able to say that. Because then I think what that does, at least I've experienced that when I'm dealing with stores and an order gets incorrectly shipped. I'm not blaming the person in the office for it. I'm like, that was my fault. I am
Yeah.
so sorry for that. Because then we know it's not my fault. They know I'm being always honest about it. So there's that built into the integrity, right?
Yeah. And then I think it also teaches them that you're approachable,
Yeah,
right? When there is an issue, they don't feel like you're going to get your back up and be defensive and blame them. It teaches them that they can approach you, which ultimately benefits all relationships.
exactly. So where do you guys see yourself in ITL? I mean, personally and business wise, obviously that's different, but where do you see ITL Health, and yourself? You can see yourself too, in the next 5 years. What do we see coming for ITL Health?
Well, I mean, in 5 years, our goal would be to be the top selling magnesium brand in Canada.
Good goal.
And at that time too, I would like to see us being in start, in at least some stores in the United States. So, I mean, as you know, a lot of different things have to happen to be able to enter a new market. But yeah, I think that would be my biggest goal, because we are Canadian and we're proudly Canadian, manufactured in Canada. Our magnesium powder actually has more magnesium per serving, like elemental magnesium per serving, than the leading powdered magnesium. So we've really worked hard on, dialing in our products to be really effective for people. So I'm really hoping that people can begin to see us as an established leader in the magnesium business. And we really love to focus on product education. I always joke, like, if we had like a talkathon, I could probably talk about magnesium for 12 hours straight and still be smiling. Like I love it. So that's my big goal for the business. I was going to say hope, but you got to do more than hope, right? So my goal for the business is that from an educational standpoint and then a sales standpoint, that we are one of the top magnesium companies in Canada.
Well, I love that. And so you are not only you're a partner as well, so you're married and you're a mother, plus you run a company. And so that creates, and I mean, I can definitely attest to that, a very full life. I have one child. Sometimes I'm like, holy crap, I can't imagine if I had two more. So do you have any tips for, I mean, the word balanced is really overused, and I don't know if, but do you have any tips that you use to kind of try to keep everything somewhat in balance?
So for me, I would say the two biggest things that I need, and sometimes they don't actually jive together, but to get enough sleep. Sleep is, keeps me sane, and it keeps my mental health and my concentration, my focus good. But also I'm very extroverted. I love to have fun. So also to make sure that I have time for fun. So like I said, sometimes those don't jive because you go out and you don't come home till midnight and then suddenly you're going to get your proper sleep. But, as a rule, on a standard night, I try to go to bed and get my 8 hours, but then also make sure that I don't reduce my life to just work and mothering and household, because we did experience some of that during COVID when we couldn't go out, and, you're fine. Like I felt okay. But then when I got my first night out after COVID, it was like, whoa, I forgot how much I needed this. So that really taught me to make sure to, in the busyness of life, to take care of myself in that regard, because that is one of my needs. And then aside from that, just lots of lists and spreadsheets and organizing, for Christmas. I got spreadsheets about gifts and who bought them and how much. You just got to stay organized.
Well, like me, sleep is definitely very important, and I'm very much an extroverted person. And so one of the things I've done is I schedule something to do once a weekend. So whether it's a dinner out, I love eating great food. So whether I'm booking a dinner out or there's a play in town or a concert in town, I'm always trying to have one thing a week that I'm really looking forward to, that I get to do, and be it with a girlfriend or a girlfriend, a friend, because right now I don't have a significant other. She's like, not again. But that's too is
Oh, too bad we don't live in the same city. I'd be with you every time.
actually probably might be a good thing.
No kidding. We'd be like, oh, we're not getting the sleep we need.
So what is one thing you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I don't know if my 20-year-old self would have listened to anything.
That's probably the same too for me.
I think I would probably tell my 20-year-old self something along the lines of, you're only 20. And although you think that you know who you are, you don't, and I would have to find a way to phrase it to make sure that 20-year-old self listened. But when I look back, and it actually makes me excited for the future, because when I look back at who I was when I was 20, I'm such a different person now. And then I can only assume that I'm going to be such a different person again in 18 years. Right. So I think that would be the big thing, that, a lot changes, and, there's a lot that you experience that you haven't experienced yet, that there's a lot that you don't realize, when we talked a bit before the interview, when you're raised, as a child, your world is all that's really shown to you at that time. Right. And so I was raised in a small city, and, I had a great upbringing, but your worldview, your world is this big when you're young. And then as my world expanded, I traveled a lot. I actually lived overseas for 4 years, and that really developed my worldview a little differently and my outlook on life. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, I think it's funny when I think back. I mean, I guess one of the things too is I thought I knew everything. And then I think that's as you get older, you realize you know nothing. Right. So I think that's the thing that's really interesting, because I have a 14-year-old who knows everything. And yeah.
Well, and then when you were young, you heard that, older people said, well, the older you are, the realize the less you know. And you're like, yeah, that's just something old people say.
And then you also too, you look at age very differently, like,
oh yeah, big time.
Passed away, I think, like even like Kirstie Alley, 71. Oh my God, that's so young. When I was like 20, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like way old.
I know, you're like, that's not young at all.
You're like, oh gosh, that's way too young. You look at that age, so differently all of a sudden as you get older. And you're like, huh. And I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, do I look like I'm 48? Do people think? Anyways, yeah, it's
Well,
funny.
no, and it's funny because you always like when you think about like when I realized that my mom like was younger or like whatever age I was when my mom was my age, and she seemed so old.
Right? I know. Yeah, so that's the big thing.
I'm like, I'm not, I'm still so young.
Like, so a 20-year-old, what are you talking about?
You know, that's the thing too that you don't realize.
No. I actually, my old boss back in the day, he said, because he used to be like Mr. Toronto. So Norm, and I remember he said he'd walk by the mirror and be like, oh my God, who is that? Like he used to be this like built, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm not that guy anymore. Right. And so
But you still feel young in your mind, right? I think that's
whenever I walk by going, oh my God, what's happened? But
where did those come from?
so, all right. So what's one thing that inspires you, or what's something that inspires you?
Something that really inspires me is the generosity of others. When I look at people who, whether they have extra or whether they don't, when they choose to be generous with their time or money, and, you know, even with time, I think that's even a greater thing than money for a lot of people because a lot of people lack, I mean, a lot of people lack money too, but, you know, when you take certain people who have a lot of money and then they donate their time, which, you know, is much harder for them in that regard, it really inspires me. And I guess I can say as a little plug for our company as well, we donate 10 cents of every jar sold to local charities. And
Amazing.
my dad has been a really great example for that in our life because he actually started a church when I was 6 years old. And he's always had a great heart for the poor and, you know, people that suffer from addictions and that sort of thing. So that's what he's really catered his church to serve people like that, which has not always been easy because for people that aren't familiar with the church model, you rely on 10%, you know, the parishioners should give 10% of their income to help run the church. But when you don't have affluent families attending the church, it can be a lot harder. But on that note, also, he founded a homeless shelter.
Remember you telling me this at CHFA?
Mhm. Yeah, so he founded a homeless shelter. And that's actually an interesting story also because we are so his church bought an old YMCA to also turn it into a community center for, you know, the church and the surrounding neighborhood. And there was a need for a men's homeless shelter. So he got temporary zoning from the city because that building or that area wasn't zoned for a shelter. So the city gave it to him and they raised a lot of money to turn it into a functional shelter. And then the city decided not to renew the zoning. So then he said, well, you know, there's a need and I'm not going to shut down a homeless shelter. I'm not going to turn people away when they need it. And then the city, so it's another lawsuit. The city sued him. They said, you have to shut down the shelter. And he said, no, I'm not, you know, doing it. So they actually went to the local court and the shelter lost.
Oh,
So then he appealed it in the Court of Appeals in Toronto, and then a human rights activation, actually a human rights organization got involved because they said this is basic human rights. So then they won on the appeal, and it actually set a precedent for all of Canada now that any church is allowed to provide shelter for
thanks.
people that need it, regardless of the zoning. So that was a really big win, you know, all around. It tears me up to think about it. But sorry.
It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, so it's like he's been an amazing inspiration and example through that. But also, I was raised partly by, well, not raised, but I have my grandmother in my life. I was very close to my grandmother. She was always so generous, even when she didn't have the money. She would donate, you know, and they were generous with their time. They had 7 children, and there was a couple in their church that had died of cancer. And nobody could take all 3 kids, so they took them, which brought them up to 10 kids. Which, you know, I have 3 kids, and I'm like, how did they ever do that?
With no Game Boys and iPads or anything.
Imagine cooking for 10 kids every day. Uh, yeah, and I have a sister who owns a business. She lives in North Carolina, and she's very generous to, you know, different charitable organizations that, you know, she feels very strongly about. I have a business mentor who their business was successful and they're extremely generous to the community. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing that it inspires me and it just makes me feel so happy inside. And then it inspires me to be even more generous in my personal life and encourage others to be generous as well, because there's so much in this world and so many people need help.
And so, what are you most proudest of in your life? I know obviously you must be really proud of your dad because your dad's done some pretty exceptional things too, but what are you most proudest of?
That's a tough question for me because it's hard to not feel like you're tooting your own horn in a sense, when somebody asks you that.
And your horn.
Sorry. So I think I would say I'm probably most proudest of my career. I feel very blessed or lucky because I feel like it's all come very easy to me. Like I said, I started I did the holistic nutrition degree, and then I was able to set up office space immediately. I had awesome support. I was able to build up my practice very quickly. I was able to come into the family business when the time was right, but I really am passionate about it and I love it. And I think I'm good at it. So that's what I feel very proud, because, it takes a lot in life to become very happy, and I would say successful in a career. And so I'm proud that I've been able to do that.
Well, to find something that, and you sound very similar to me in the sense of, I know this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm doing exactly what I am intended to be doing here. And it took a lot of me, because I had this nudging for so long to start Erin Wellness and do my own business. And when I was allowed the opportunity by being packaged out by the company that I'd been with for 13 years, it was like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, went, all right, here's,
Yeah,
and holy shit, now I got to do it. Oh my God. Right.
I know.
I was thinking about it, and as the business has grown, and I mean, I don't think I knew I wanted to do a business, but like I started 2 products. So I'm like, yay, 2 products. But it's just now that it's becoming bigger, and every day I'm so excited that I get to do what I do. Like last Friday, I've put my new Apple screen. I brought it out because I can't do Excel on my laptop because I have to do readers. My eyes bother me now. Like
Aging comment.
but I spent all night on Friday doing this beautiful Excel like 2023 marketing plan. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And like I didn't even stop. I didn't want to stop because I'm so excited to be able to do that. So I think you're kind of the same as me. Is if I ever go on a date and they ask me what I do, I'm like, I'm sorry, because I'll just keep going and going. I'm like,
You're like, wrong question. This date's, you're not going to call me back. No.
I really, really love my business. I love what I do. And I'm sure they're like, oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway. No. But I think that's the thing too. And, it doesn't always happen, as easily for some people. But I think really, if you can kind of let the universe guide you, you'll often land up in the same spot. Because it's interesting, when you were talking, I was like, you know what, when I think about that, like I went to get my BA in the liberal arts, everybody said, what are you going to do? That's no career. I said, I'll figure it out. But that degree, helped me read these research studies and writing and all of that. And then I did the nutrition degree. And I remember my sister saying to me, like, what do you want to do with it? Like, you can't really make much money working in a health food store. I said, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just really interested in it. I'll see where it goes. And then, it was very easy for me to start my own practice. And then that was in Sarnia, where we manufacture. And then I met my husband and I moved to Toronto, and everyone was like, you're leaving your whole nutritional practice behind. What are you going to do in Toronto? It's like, I don't know. I'll find something, and you know what I mean? Like, there, and it's not always so cut and dry. And there's obviously many more insecure moments and kind of like, oh my God, what am I doing? But it's really cool when you can look back and see that and
connect the dots, right? A lot of the time you don't see the dots until you look back and watch it all, and you're like, oh, that's so interesting. And you also, I love the terminology. It's from a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and she defines God, universal, flow, all that be, because I definitely know there's a strong sense of that in my life. But she calls it your good orderly direction, your God. And I've always really loved that. And so, Oprah talks a lot about that. In those moments when you're not sure what to do, to get still and be like, hey, what's the next best thing? And just really kind of tuning into that. And I've gotten better at that over the past year or so to a couple of years, especially within my business. Relationship wise, I've gotten better with it, but also within my business, where if I'm not sure what to do and I just have to sit back and be like, hey, what would be the best thing? What makes me feel really at peace? Which choice? Right. And listening to that, I think the more you tune into it, then it becomes easier. Right. And even if it ends up just being a really valuable lesson that you end up having, sometimes it might not work out the way you want it to, but you're like, okay, that was a really good lesson. So what am I going to do going forward with this? Right. So,
and looking back, it's always easier to understand why
the things all connected the way it did, for sure. So, well, thank you so much for being with me today and sitting here and chatting. And I want everybody to be able to find ITL Health. So where do they find you? Where do they find ITL Health? How do they find out about events? How do they buy product?
So our handles and website and everything is ITL Health. Like I said, that's our company name. We do have a few different brands that we sell, but itlhealth.ca Instagram, Facebook is just ITL Health. It stands for In the Light, in case you have a
I was
hard
just
time.
gonna say, I was like, what does it stand for? Oh, I love it. In the light. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah. So again, from the whole integrity and health kind of outlook, it's, we want to be in the light, darkness is and darkness versus light. So ITL Health, and you can find us. We're starting to enter more stores in Canada. We just entered the Canadian market this year. So if you're looking for our products and you have a local store and you want to help us out, we'd love it if you tell them about us or ask them to bring us in. But right now we do have a store locator on our website if you're looking to buy retail. And we do ask that you do support local retailers, as they have had a tough few years and we really love to do all we can to support them. But if you're not able to get to a local retailer, we sell direct and we're available through most major online retailers in Canada as well. And we do have monthly webinars if you sign up for our mailing list, which will also get you more research and articles and everything magnesium and beyond related. We're actually doing a stress webinar on Wednesday.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Meaghan. I really appreciate you taking time with me today. And
Having me.
yeah, and thank you everybody else for standing by, being here.
Listening.
Sounds like what you said,
Supporting us.
webinar. I'm like attending. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Stay tuned for next month and join us for another Friends You Keep. Have a great day, everyone.